Hey everyone, Zach Otten. Hope you guys are doing well on this beautiful Friday. It is Friday, March 22nd, and just wanted to send out a video regarding the National Association of Realtors settlement that I'm sure most of you have heard about. It was kind of released last Friday. That the settlement had been reached between the National Association of Realtors and the plaintiffs in a case in Missouri. So it has national implications, though, because the Department of Justice was also, I think, kind of weighing in on the situation in that particular lawsuit and a few others that have been going on. So I want to give you my opinion and I guess let you know what may or may not be changing. The reality is as of right now, we don't really know how much this will affect the industry in regards to compensations for agents and for buyers and sellers. So, I mean, it's been about a week since it's been dropped, and every day it seems like there's new kind of tidbits that come out about it. So I can tell you, as of right now, the two biggest changes are, one, so this has kind of been true in Colorado to begin with, but now it's a requirement. So if you call and say, hey, Zach, I want to go see this home, even if you're not even necessarily that interested in buying it, but you've been looking at this area and you seem like, hey, it's a good deal. I have to have a buyer agency agreement with you put in place. And it could be just for that home. It could be just for it could be for like the standard time, like 6 months is what I've kind of made my agreements with. But it has to be in place and signed before I can show you any homes. So all agents are supposed to have this agency signed before they go show any home. So like if you call on a Zillow listing and you get directed to some agent, in theory, they're supposed to be having you sign that agency agreement. It's technically supposed to have been that way in Colorado previously, but it hasn't, most people wait until you get closer to being under contract. But as of now, it has to happen immediately. Second, and this is kind of the biggest change. So when you sign if you're selling your property and you call and you say, hey, Zach, we're going to sell our property. And I'm just going to use the numbers that the media has been using, even though they're not mostly, in most cases, is accurate. So they've been saying 6%. So let's say we sell your home you agree to pay me, your listing agent, 6%. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to pay the buyer's agent out of that 6%, 3% or 2.8% or whatever is agreed upon between us, to bring a buyer that's willing to purchase the home. That co-op is what it's called. What I'm offering to the buyer's agent to bring a buyer to the property is no longer allowed to be listed on the MLS. So before you could see, what was being offered, and they're trying to avoid that so agents don't what's called steer, push people towards a home. If an agent's offering 3% versus an agent that's offering, or a seller that's offering 2%, they don't want an agent to basically go to one home that's offering a higher compensation versus another one that's offering a lower compensation. So that's kind of the goal. More transparency, which is a good thing, and not being able to get that information off the MLS. Now, this is where it kind of becomes tricky because you're still, as the seller, allowed to offer compensation, which I think is going to have to happen, because the simple fact is most sellers, when you look historically, have record levels of equity in their homes. So sellers have equity, and obviously you want to keep as much of that equity as you possibly can in your pocket. But buyers, on the other hand, are stretching every dime and penny they can to get a home. It's one of the most expensive times in the history to purchase a home. So basically what this ruling is, a lot of people are going under the assumption that I think is kind of what they're trying to do, is have buyers pay for their agent's commission. So there's two kind of thoughts behind that. One, they want buyers, agents, or realtors' commissions to come down in general, which I think they naturally already were happening naturally anyway. But on the other hand, they also, and I don't agree with this thought process whatsoever, but they also think that if commissions come down, home prices will come down. I'm not sure what economists came up with that thought process to make them think that that's going to happen, but I don't foresee that happening. I could be 100% wrong, but so I know that's a lot of information, but that's kind of the broad basis of what will be changing. So you can still, as a seller, offer a commission or some form of compensation. It could be a flat fee, it could be a percentage. I personally think most sellers are going to still elect to offer some form of compensation to a buyer's agent, because if a buyer is buying a $500,000 home, even if an agent is willing to do the deal for $5,000, most buyers just don't have an extra $5,000 laying around to be able to put towards paying their agents to help them on the transaction. So one of two things is probably going to happen. Either sellers will continue to offer compensation that attracts agents and buyers to their homes, or two, a lot of buyers are going to elect to go go directly to the listing agent and essentially work with them. So that agent just essentially what's called a double ends the deal. I mean, who's going to win out of all this is lawyers. Lawyers are going to win out of all this, because we had this system back in the early 90s was kind of this was the system that they're trying to go back to now, where there wasn't buyer agency as much, so dual agency or listing agent representing both parties was pretty common. And the problem with that, especially as we've become more litigious, is no matter how neutral you are as an agent or how much you if you choose to only represent the seller and the buyer is just a customer, somebody's always feeling slighted in that transaction. Almost, it happens every time. And I just feel like there's going to be a lot of deals where things that should have been disclosed weren't disclosed by one of the broker / seller. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that think they're being represented by the agent who's actually truly has the seller's best interest at heart, not the buyers, who think they're being represented, and then they move in and realize there's issues that they weren't aware of. And some of this stuff happens now, but I think it's gonna get worse as that goes on. I kind of feel like this ruling maybe has good intentions, but I feel like I'm not sure the implementation of all this is going to go as well as what they're thinking or hoping. So, with that being said, so how does this change everything? So, the reality is it's too early to know. So, in theory, we're supposed to start this new process come July. So, they're not even sure this is going to be fully settled by July, and I don't know why you would implement this huge change to the industry. It's a huge sector of our economy, and give us 3.5 months to adjust, and then also implement it in the busiest time of the year. Again, lack of foresight, in my opinion, on kind of all of that. But I think it may be it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. I think in the short term, I think most sellers are going to elect to pay, as I mentioned, a portion of buyers' agents' compensation. And that may suppress commissions or compensation, but it may not come down as quickly as some people think, or it may come down much quicker than people think. I don't know. It's really difficult to say what's going to happen. Over these next few months, we'll definitely learn more. So, I mean, I guess not to say there's just direct lines of winners and losers, but I think a direct line of losers is going to be buyers, unfortunately. With interest rates where they're at and the prices where they're at, you're already adding an additional fee, even if it's a minimal fee. You're just not going to get great representation. I mean, there's all these models coming out, which have already existed prior to this, of flat rate companies that they'll do it for, X amount, $2,500, $5,000. Or a lot of people think you'll just go hire a real estate attorney to go do it, which I don't know any real estate attorneys that aren't agents that are showing homes on weekends or accepting calls on weekends or, being a resource and almost a counsel, a shrink for some of the clients as they're going through this. Because it's not only just a large financial decision, it's a huge emotional decision. So, obviously I'm coming from the perspective of an agent. I think a lot of the general public, from a large fault of our own, because I don't think we've done a great job of showing our value to the general public. And I think we've let a lot of bad agents remain in the industry that should never be there. So I think hopefully those fly-by-the-night agents that just do 1 or 2 deals a year will hopefully go by the wayside. But I think there's going to be a lot of pain in the coming years and a lot of lessons learned that maybe this model isn't going to be as great as what I think a lot of people think it is. I think the general public thinks that it's very easy, and in some instances it very well is, and in other instances it's not whatsoever. So again, obviously I'm a little bit biased, being that this is the career I've done for 16 years. I've seen a lot, but I don't think it's going to be as smooth as what I think a lot of people are thinking or hoping it's going to be. And I definitely don't agree that prices are going to come down because of it. If anything, I personally think some sellers are going to offer no compensation and then try to negotiate it with the broker that brings a buyer, and it's going to be made up by paying more for the house, and you're almost financing it, which in its own instance, the lending per side, you can't actually do that on some type of loan. So like VA buyers are unable to pay by law, they're not allowed to pay any of the broker's commission or compensation. So I'm not sure how VA buyers are going to, there's going to have to be some policy changes, or something's going to have to change, because a lot of these lenders aren't going to allow any sort of compensation from the buyer, depending on the loan that they have. So it's just going to be a big adjustment for everyone. So again, I just want to get this message out because I've had a lot of people reach out and ask how this affects them, and from the buy side and the sell side, and a few have checked in to see how I'm doing, and I appreciate that. So it's really just a lot of information that we're just trying to digest and I guess make the best of what we can. So I think over the next couple of months, it's really going to be interesting to see all the new business models that come out, and kind of how consumers react to it, how sellers react to it. But buyers, I think, are kind of a loser in this. And if buyers are a loser, sellers are going to be a loser, because if you have less buyers out there searching because you've just pushed affordability even more to the extreme. Obviously, if you have less buyers, you have less people willing to purchase a home. So maybe a supply and demand would be good, because we still have a shortage of houses, but the lack of home ownership for some people is obviously not going to be great. So so I guess that's just my two thoughts. Sorry, I wrote down some notes before I got on this, and just trying to see if there's anything else. I'm sure there's things that I missed, but those are the highlights. If you have any questions, or if you're thinking of buying or selling and this may impact you, we haven't already spoken about this, try to call most of the people that I've been working with that I know are going to buy or sell this year, and had a one-on-one conversation. But if for any reason I haven't got to you, or if you have any additional questions, please reach out. I'm going to try to make these updates as we get more information, and just kind of let people know what's happening. So hopefully you found this information helpful, and I try not to be too biased, obviously, from my perspective. And I do think some of the changes are helpful, and being more transparent is definitely a good thing. Anyway, hopefully you have a great weekend, and hopefully you'll get one of these other videos soon. Thanks.